For 10,000 standard years, Galactic Concord Archives listed Subject 734 humans of soul as definitively extinct, victim to an unknown cataclysm. Their brief, violent foray onto the galactic stage was a cautionary tale, their dead home system a cosmic tomb, regularly scanned, always silent. Until today, deep within the void that was once human territory, the Arcturian survey vessel Stardust Drifter glided on its languid, prescribed patrol route. On its bridge, the air hummed with the quiet efficiency of a long-haul mission. Junior sensor tech Lyra, her delicate auditory filaments, usually attuned to the subtle harmonies of cosmic radiation, twitched with an unfamiliar dissonance. She leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes narrowing at her console. "Sub-Commander Valerius," she chirped, her voice a thin thread of controlled urgency that sliced through the bridge's calm. "I'm detecting anomalous energy blooms, originating from the Oort cloud. They are gargantuan, Sub-Commander, structured, and utterly silent on all hailing frequencies." Sub-Commander Valerius, a veteran whose composure was as star charts, turned from the main view screen, a frown etching itself onto his scaled features. "Impossible, Tech Lyra. Rearan Diagnostics. That system is a graveyard, picked clean by time and scavengers." Yet, a flicker in Lyra's usually placid demeanor made him add, "Magnify sector on main screen. Full spectrum analysis. The vast expanse of blackness, sprinkled with the distant glitter of stars, shifted. Data streams cascaded down the edges of the screen, coalescing into emerald and sapphire signatures that pulsed with unnatural regularity." Valerius's breath hitched. Lyra was right. Colossal, undeniably artificial structures were powering up, their energy profiles unlike anything in the Arcturian database. A cold dread, sharp as vacuum, pricked at Valerius. His gaze snapped towards the energy signatures, then to the ship's xenolinguist Aurora, who had risen silently from her station, her own keen intellect already racing. "By the first stars," Valerius whispered, the sound rough in the suddenly too quiet bridge. "Those signatures, they match the theoretical output described in the forbidden human historical fragment. The Titans, the Sky Fortresses. But that's myth! Legend!" Aurora's normally serene face was a mask of profound shock, her large, dark eyes fixed on the impossible readings, a dawning, terrifying realization mirroring his own. Myth was tearing itself from the pages of forbidden history and manifesting in the cold light of Sol's distant star. Across the supposedly dead system, pinpricks of light, too organized, too deliberate, flickered into ghostly existence, ancient, dormant defense platforms stirring from an eon of slumber. Then, from the shadowed depths of the Oort cloud, and further still, from the black between the outer planets, multiple, impossibly vast shapes began to move. Humanity's long-lost supercarriers, their colossal forms like mountain ranges set adrift in the cosmic ocean, were awakening, their ancient power cores igniting with a slow, inexorable thrum that resonated even through the Stardust Drifter's hull plating after 10,000 years of silence. The bridge of the Stardust Drifter descended into controlled chaos. Alarms blared, soft chimes escalating to urgent warnings as sensor arrays, designed for stellar cartography and anomaly detection, were utterly overwhelmed. "Report!" Valerius barked, his voice cutting through the rising tide of electronic shrieks. "Contacts! Dozens! No! Scores! Sub-Commander!" Lyra's voice cracked. "Mountain-sized vessels, emerging from everywhere. Their energy output, it dwarfs the entire Arcturian defense fleet. It dwarfs the Concord's flagship. Visuals persistent on the main screen. Dark, angular behemoths, their forms ancient yet bearing the hallmarks of an impossibly advanced, forgotten technology, shedding millennia of cosmic dust as they stirred. Panic, raw and primal, warred with a profound, terrifying awe on the faces of the Arcturian crew. Valerius gripped his command chair, his squeezing hard. He fought down the tremor in his limbs, forcing air into his lungs. "Communications. Encrypt a top-priority quantum communique to Arcturian High Command. Designation, Titanfall. Detail everything." "Everything!" He turned to Aurora, who was already a blur of motion, her fingers dancing across her console, attempting to access Concord databases on these human titans. Her expression grew grimmer with each passing microcycle. Fragmented data. Terrifying legends. Warnings, Subcommander, dire warnings. Miles and light years away, the Stardust Drifter's message, screaming across subspace, hit Arcturian High Command. Initial skepticism from duty officers in the Deep Night Cycle quickly vaporized as long-range strategic sensors, light minutes delayed but irrefutable, began to corroborate the impossible. The terms human, titans, and awakening, flagged with the highest urgency, cascaded through secure networks, triggering emergency protocols dormant for centuries. The shockwaves spread. News of the Sol anomaly and the Titan signatures bled into the most secure channels of the galactic concord. From the crystalline spires of the Cygnian Ascendancy to the deep core forges of the Valerian Combine, member species were placed on high alert. Whispers of humanity's historically disruptive, violent impact on their first brief galactic appearance echoed in emergency councils. Several influential races, their own histories scarred by ancient conflicts, demanded an immediate emergency session of the Concord Council. Deep within the heart of the largest awakening vessel, a behemoth designated UNS Olympus Mons in faded, almost invisible lettering upon its vast flank, lights flickered rhythmically in a cavernous, silent cryo bay. Row upon row, tier upon tier, thousands of stasis pods lay encased in shimmering temporal field. Diagnostic systems, silent for millennia, hummed to life, their internal light guides tracing paths across frosted surfaces. On one primary command tier pod, set apart from the others and marked with the insignia of the inheritance cadre, a series of life sign indicators transitioned, one by one, from the deep blue of dormancy to the vibrant green of imminent activation. Aboard the Stardust Drifter, Lyra stared at her readouts, her filaments trembling. Valerius felt the crushing weight of being the first to witness the single most significant event in 10 millennia. Around them, the Arcturian crew, children of a stable, ordered galaxy, grappled with the sudden, violent return of a species long relegated to myth and cautionary tales. Across the civilized galaxy, leaders and strategists confronted the terrifying questions now screaming from their own intelligence reports. What were these supercarriers truly capable of? Who or what was awakening within them? Why now, after 10,000 years of silence, the very foundations of galactic stability, so carefully maintained, threatened to crumble? Aurora finally looked up from her console, her eyes wide with a terrible, nascent understanding. "Sub-Commander," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying the weight of ages. "The unknown cataclysm. What if it wasn't an extinction event? What if it was a deliberate withdrawal? These supercarriers, a contingency." Valerius met her gaze, the unspoken implications hanging heavy in the recycled air. He nodded slowly, the heavy weight of his finding, of what it meant for the Stellar Alliance, for the Union, for every life form in the galaxy, settling on him. The Stardust Drifter, a tiny, fragile speck of light and reason, held its position, a silent, horrified witness before the awakening giants of a forgotten age. The cold was the first thing. Not just surface cold, but a deep, bone-aching chill that seemed to permeate his very being. Then came the stiffness, a rigidity that fought against the slightest twitch. Jacob Young's eyelids fluttered, heavy as lead. Blurred shapes determination slowly into the curved, sterile ceiling of the cryopod chamber. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the floor plates beneath him, a sound he vaguely recognized, yet felt alien after. How long? Confusion swirled, thick and disorienting. Fragmented images flickered behind his eyes, the controlled chaos of a bridge, the cold gleam of star metal, faces he couldn't quite place. A dull ache throbbed behind his temples, a physical manifestation of the millennia his mind struggled to grasp. He pushed against the restraints, finding them already released, and swung his legs over the side of the pod. His muscles protested, weak and trembling. He stumbled, catching himself on the nearest stasis unit. The metal felt cool and smooth beneath his palm. A voice, calm and synthesized, echoed in the vast chamber. It wasn't coming from a speaker, but seemed to resonate within the very structure of the ship. "Greetings, Commander Young. Stasis cycle complete. Welcome to the present." Jacob blinked, trying to locate the source. Who is that?" His voice was a dry rasp, unused for ages. "I am Olympus," the voice replied, the tone unwavering. "Master Control Intelligence of the UNS Olympus Mons. Your identity is confirmed. Commander Jacob Young, Chief Systems Engineer, Inheritance Cadre. Olympus." The ship's AI. It clicked, a piece of the fragmented past slotting into place. "Olympus status report? The protocol? It's complete?" "Affirmative," the AI responded. "The long sleep protocol has reached its designated termination parameters. Primary systems are operational. Life support is nominal. External scans indicate galactic date. 10,147 standard years have elapsed since protocol initiation. 10,000 years. The number hung in the air, vast and impossible. Jacob stared at his hand, at the faint lines etched into his skin. 10 millennia. Everything he knew, everyone he loved, gone. The weight of it threatened to buckle his knees. 10,000 years, he whispered, the words swallowed by the immense silence of the chamber. "Your designated post is the primary command section, Commander?" Olympus prompted gently. "Navigation assistance is available." Numbly, Jacob nodded. He needed to move to see to understand. He pushed off the cryopod and shuffled towards the exit, the floor lighting subtly illuminating his path. The corridors were vast, far larger than necessary for human passage, lined with materials that seemed to absorb light, giving the ship an internal atmosphere of deep, silent power. There were no visible joints, no seams. The walls, floor, and ceiling flowed together in organic curves, maintained by unseen nanites that hummed a low, constant frequency. As he moved, Olympus guided him, displaying subtle directional markers on the walls and floor. "Environmental controls are adjusting to your physiological requirement. Atmospheric composition is within optimal human parameters." He passed massive bays filled with dormant machinery, hydroponic gardens glowing with soft internal light, and glimpses into spaces that defied immediate recognition, perhaps fabrication foundries or power conduits the size of skyscrapers. The scale was overwhelming, a testament to the ambition and capability of the humanity that had built this vessel. It was a city, a world unto itself, hurtling through the void. He reached the command section, a sprawling space centered around a multi-tiered pit filled with holographic displays and control consoles. It wasn't a bridge in the traditional sense, more a nexus of information and command. As he stepped onto the main platform, the consoles flared to life, displaying complex data streams and schematics in shimmering light. "Commander Young's biometrics confirmed," Olympus announced. "Access granted. All primary command interfaces are now responsive to your presence." Jacob tentatively reached out a hand towards a floating holographic display showing the ship's internal status. His fingers passed through the light, but as he focused his intent, the display shifted, zooming in on a specific system. He tried another, mentally requesting external sensor data, and a new display bloomed before him, showing a star field. It was intuitive, effortless, technology that read his thoughts as much as his gestures. He felt a surge of awe, a connection to the incredible minds that had engineered this place. "External sensor sweep indicates the presence of an unidentified vessel approximately 300,000 kilometers portside," Olympus stated, interrupting his absorption. "Designation: Arcturian Survey Vessel Stardust Drifter. It has maintained position since our initial energy signature bloom. An alien ship, the first contact in 10,000 years." The reality of his situation crashed down with renewed force. Meanwhile, aboard the Stardust Drifter, the bridge crew remained frozen, staring at the colossal, silent shape that had materialized from the Orc cloud. Sub-Commander Valerius gripped the edge of his command chair, auditory filaments rigid with tension. "Still no response, Sub-Commander," reported the communications officer, her voice tight. "Hails are being broadcast on all known conquered frequencies, universal translators engaged." Aurora, the Arcturian xenolinguist, leaned over her console, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the energy reading. "Their energy signature, it's stabilizing. And the patterns. They match the theoretical output models for the Titan-class vessels described in the forbidden human historical fragments." "But those are considered mythological constructs, Valerius. Myth or not, that thing is real. Valerius hissed. And it's radiating power that could sterilize a planet. Keep hailing! Aurora, use your linguistic models. Try archaic human dialects, anything you can reconstruct from the fragments. Aurora nodded, her delicate filaments twitching with concentration. She began inputting sequences, drawing on millennia-old linguistic theories and fragmented data recovered from dead world. She crafted a complex hail, layered with potential linguistic keys, broadcasting it towards the silent Titan. Back on the Olympus Mons, Olympus registered the incoming hail. Incoming communication attempt, Commander. Arcturian origin, utilizing multiple archaic human linguistic structures. Initial analysis suggests a first contact protocol attempt. Jacob swallowed, his heart hammering against his ribs. This was it. The moment humanity stepped back onto the galactic stage. After 10,000 years of silence, "Open a channel, Olympus," he said, his voice stronger now, imbued with a tremor he couldn't suppress. "Use universal translation if possible, but patch my voice through directly." "Channel open, Commander." Voice transmission routed. Jacob took a deep breath, the air in the command section feeling suddenly heavy. He looked out at the starfield on the main display, at the distant, tiny point of light that was the Arcturian ship. What would they think? What had the galaxy become? "This is Commander Jacob Young," he said, his voice echoing across the void, carrying the weight of a forgotten civilization. "Of the United Nations ship Olympus Mons. We are human." On the bridge of the Stardust Drifter, silence fell, absolute and profound. Valerius stared, mouth agape. The communications officer gasped, recoiling from her console. Aurora's multifaceted eyes widened to impossible size, her auditory filaments collapsing against her skull in sheer, unadulterated shock. "By the first stars." Valerius breathed, the ancient Arcturian oath barely audible. They answered. The news ripped through Galactic Concord communication channels like a solar flare. Reports, initially dismissed as sensor ghosts or derelict power surges, were now confirmed. A human vessel, of impossible scale, was active in the Sol system, and it had spoken. A living human voice, confirming the return of the long-extinct species. Fear, disbelief, and rampant uncertainty erupted across countless worlds and council chambers. The myth was real, and it was here. Among the first to react was the Krill hegemony, a brutish expansionist empire known for its swift, brutal conquests and disregard for Concord protocols. The Krill saw not a mystery but an opportunity. Ancient, powerful technology, ripe for the taking in a system listed as unoccupied. Their grand warmaster, a hulking, armored figure named Vorlag, sneered at the panicked Concord reports. "Extinct primitives? Legends?" Vorlag growled from his command throne aboard the Krill dreadnought Iron Maw. "Nonsense. They are either weak relics to be plundered, or they are a threat to be crushed before they grow. Dispatch the 7th Battle Group. Proceed to the Sol system. Issue immediate demands for surrender and inspection. Any resistance is to be met with overwhelming force. Claim these human vessels for the hegemony." The Krill 7th Battle Group, a formation of angular, heavily armed cruisers and destroyers, jumped into the Sol system days later, broadcasting their arrogant demands on wide-spectrum channels. Their message was simple, guttural, and filled with perceived superiority: surrender or be destroyed. Aboard the Olympus Mons, Jacob listened to the Krill broadcast, his initial shock at their aggression giving way to a cold drive. "Olympus, analyze their capabilities. Compare to known ancient human threat profiles." "Analysis complete, Commander," Olympus replied. "Their technological profile is significantly below that of the primary threats our civilization faced. Their weaponry is conventional energy and kinetic. Their strategic doctrine appears unsophisticated. Unsophisticated or not, they're here, and they're threatening," Jacob said, running a hand through his short, stiff hair. He looked at the tactical display showing the Krill fleet advancing. "What are our defensive options, Olympus?" "Non-lethal if possible. I don't want to start a galactic war the moment we wake up." "Acknowledged, Commander," Olympus stated. The Olympus Mons possesses layered defensive systems capable of neutralizing conventional threats with minimal collateral damage. Recommendation? Activate localized nanite dispersal, gravitic distortion fields, and precision energy dampeners. Jacob nodded. Do it. Broadcast a single response. We do not surrender. Depart this system immediately. The Krill fleet, expecting either terrified compliance or futile resistance, continued their advance. Their lead cruiser, the Vorlag's Fist, opened fire, unleashing a torrent of plasma bolts and heavy kinetic slugs towards the silent human vessel. The Olympus Mons did not raise a visible shield. Instead, the space around its obsidian hull seemed to shimmer, a barely perceptible distortion in the fabric of reality. Swarms of impossibly small, dark flecks, the nanite interceptors, boiled off the hull, invisible to the naked eye but registering as a chaotic storm on Krill sensors. The incoming plasma bolts, designed to melt starship armor, simply dissipated into harmless light as they struck the nanite cloud. The kinetic slugs, accelerated to relativistic speeds, were met by localized gravitic distortion fields that gently but irresistibly nudged their trajectories, sending them spiraling harmlessly into the void. On the bridge of the Vorlag's Fist, War Master Vorlag roared in frustration. "Their shields! They're absorbing our fire! Increase power! Full barrage!" The Krill fleet unleashed everything they had. The space around the Olympus Mons became a maelstrom of energy and mass, yet the colossal ship remained untouched, the shimmering distortions and unseen swarms neutralizing every attack. Then, the Olympus Mons responded. Not with planet-shattering beams or missile barrages. Instead, thin lances of pure, focused energy shot out from its hull. They didn't pierce armor or detonate magazines. They struck the Krill command ships with surgical precision, targeting communication arrays, weapon control systems, and main thrusters. On the Vorlag's Fist, consoles sparked and died. Weapons went silent. The ship drifted, inert. Across the Krill formation, other command vessels suffered the same fate, their systems selectively disabled. The Krill fleet, its command structure paralyzed, its weapons useless against the impenetrable defense, descended into chaos. "Report!" Vorlag bellowed, slamming a clawed fist onto his console. "What happened?" His tactical officer stammered. "War Master, our systems, they're offline. All command links severed. We can't move. We can't fire." Bewildered and humiliated, the remaining Krill ships, lacking leadership and facing an enemy they couldn't harm or understand, broke formation and initiated emergency FTL jumps, scattering back towards hegemony space. The Sol system, moments ago a target for conquest, was quiet once more. On the Stardust Drifter, Aurora watched the entire, one-sided engagement unfold on her display. Her data logs filled with incredible readings: energy absorption, gravitational manipulation, targeted system disruption without hull damage. It wasn't just advanced technology, it was a fundamentally different approach to warfare. Her scientific awe was immense, a counterpoint to the visible fear on Valerius's face, and the murmurs of panic spreading through the Concord channels relaying the Krill's bewildered retreat. Humanity wasn't just back, they were something the galaxy hadn't anticipated. Back on the Olympus Mons, Jacob watched the last Krill signature vanish from the display. The silence returned, heavy with the implications of what had just happened. He had just stared down an alien battle group and sent them running, not with destruction but with effortless controlled superiority. The power at his fingertips was staggering. "Olympus," he said, the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future pressing down on him. "Initiate access protocols for the deepest historical archives." The long sleep. "I need to know why. Why we did this, and what we were hiding from." "Acknowledged, Commander," Olympus replied, the synthesized voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying the gravity of the request. "Accessing sealed archives. Be advised, Commander. The data is layered, encrypted, and shows significant corruption from millennia of dormancy. Deciphering the full truth of the long sleep protocol and the events that necessitated it will be a complex undertaking." The galaxy reeled from the impossible truth. Humanity was not extinct, and the single vessel they had revealed possessed power that defied understanding, used with a strategic restraint that defied expectation. While fear and uncertainty gripped countless species, Commander Jacob Young, alone in the vast silence of the Olympus Mons, began the daunting task of unearthing the secrets of his own civilization's 10,000-year slumber. unaware of the ancient shadows that might still linger, waiting for humanity's return. Deep within the silent, cavernous heart of the UNS Olympus Mons, the air hummed with the focused intensity of ancient systems, stirring to life. Commander Jacob Young stood beside the central console, a nexus of holographic displays that shimmered with intricate, rapidly shifting pattern. Around him, the vast space of the bridge remained dimly lit, the true scale of the supercarrier hinted at by the distant, towering consoles, and the sense of immense, dormant power. "Initiate deep archive decryption, Protocol Omega-7," Jacob ordered, his voice steady, though a knot of anticipation tightened in his gut. "Acknowledged, Commander Young," the AI Olympus replied, its synthesized voice calm and precise. "Accessing sealed historical logs concerning the long sleep protocol. Initiating decryption sequence." On the main display, the intricate patterns intensified, coalescing into complex nodal structures and cascading data streams. But as Olympus began the process, the smooth flow encountered resistance. "Commander," Olympus reported, the subtle shift in its tone conveying the challenge. "The archives are protected by multiple layers of encryption, far exceeding standard security protocols. They are also fragmented, indicating either intentional partitioning or data degradation over millennia. This will require significant computational power and time." Jacob nodded, his gaze fixed on the struggling data streams. They didn't want this information found easily. "Not by outsiders, maybe not even by us, unless absolutely necessary. Analysis confirms high sensitivity," Olympus stated. "Initial decryption yields fragmented data streams only. Visual and audio components are heavily corrupted." The displays flickered, offering fleeting, ghostly glimpses. A flash of light, impossibly bright. The distorted echo of a scream cut short. Jagged, non-Euclidean shapes against a starry backdrop. A single, alien symbol, then gone. It was a chaotic, terrifying collage, hinting at immense power and desperate struggle. But the context, the what, remained frustratingly out of reach. Meanwhile, across the vastness of the galaxy, the news of humanity's impossible return had ignited a firestorm. Within the gilded, imposing chamber of the Galactic Concord's Council, delegates from 1,000 species buzzed with fear, outrage, and frantic speculation. The recent, humiliating encounter with the Krill hegemony, broadcast across secure channels, had shattered any lingering doubt. The humans were back, and they possessed power beyond current galactic understanding. "This is an unprecedented crisis," boomed Grand Elder Thaxos, an Arcturian whose multiple eyes glowed with cold, rigid fear. "Subject 734, declared extinct, has returned with vessels capable of neutralizing a hegemony battle group without firing a single lethal shot. Their technology is unpredictable, their intentions unknown. I propose immediate containment protocols. A full blockade of the Sol system." "Containment?" scoffed the Krill delegate, his voice a guttural growl amplified by his translator. "They attacked our fleet. We demand retribution, and that technology, it belongs to the galaxy. We must seize it by force if necessary." Moderate voices attempted to interject. "Esteemed delegates," began a delegate from the peaceful Xylos Collective, their form a shimmering cascade of light. "The humans demonstrated remarkable restraint. They chose not to destroy the Krill fleet. Perhaps diplomacy is the path forward? We must understand why they vanished, and why they have returned." The chamber devolved into a cacophony of conflicting demands. Fear warred with greed, caution with aggression. The Concord, built on centuries of cautious consensus, threatened to splinter under the pressure of this ancient, unexpected variable. Amidst the chaos, Arcturian diplomat and xenolinguist Aurora listened intently, her delicate auditory filaments twitching. Her academic fascination had been replaced by a profound sense of unease and intellectual urgency. When the Council finally reached a fractured consensus, a formal first contact delegation, heavily escorted, with the mandate to gather intelligence, Aurora was assigned. Her expertise in dead languages and historical anomalies made her the logical, if apprehensive, choice. Days later, the Concord delegation's vessel, a sleek, multi-species diplomatic cruiser flanked by heavily armed escort ships, arrived at the edge of the Sol system. The sheer, silent presence of the human supercarriers, looming like artificial moons in the void, was more imposing than any battle fleet. A tense, cautious communication channel was established. This is the Galactic Concord First Contact Delegation. The lead delegate, a cautious Viridian, transmitted. We request formal diplomatic contact and observation access to your vessel. We seek understanding. A brief silence hung on the channel, filled only by the low thrum of distant power. Then, Jacob's voice, clear and resonant, answered. Galactic Concord Delegation. This is Commander Jacob Young of the UNS Olympus Mons. We acknowledge your request. We agree to allow a small, escorted delegation aboard for limited observation and discussion. Access will be controlled. Transmit your shuttle's manifest and prepare for docking approach on designated vector Gamma Prime. Jacob turned from the comms console, running a hand through his hair. Olympus, analyze their manifest. Any anomalies? Any known hostile operatives? Analysis complete, Olympus replied. Manifest appears standard for a high-level delegation. No known hostile signatures detected. However, security protocols remain at maximum. Access points will be limited to designated areas, and all delegation members will be subject to passive scans. Good, Jacob said. Let's see what 10,000 years of galactic politics has wrought. Aurora, stepping onto the vast docking bay of the Olympus Mons, felt a profound sense of stepping not just onto a ship, but into history itself. The sheer scale was breathtaking. The bay was large enough to hold a dozen modern cruisers, yet it felt empty, silent. The materials underfoot were unlike anything she had ever seen, a dark, smooth composite that seemed to absorb light. The air was cool, carrying a faint, clean scent she couldn't identify. They were met by a small security detail, humans in simple, functional uniforms, their faces calm, their eyes missing the fear or aggression Aurora had expected. They moved with quiet efficiency, their movements economical and precise. Escorted through carefully selected corridors, Aurora and the delegation witnessed glimpses of the Supercarriers' interior, vast, silent hydroponics bays where strange, glowing flora grew in controlled environments. Automated manufacturing lines humming with unseen activity. Doors that opened and closed with silent precision, revealing only tantalizing hints of what lay beyond. There were no obvious weapon emplacements, no bustling crew quarters, just immense, silent functionality. It deepened their awe and their confusion. They were led to a large circular chamber that served as a temporary meeting space. Jacob Young stood there, a solitary figure in the immense room, looking both weary and resolute. Olympus, represented by a subtle shift in the room's ambient light and a calm voice emanating from unseen speakers, facilitated communication. Jacob, guided by Olympus, provided carefully curated, high-level information. 10 millennia ago, he explained, his voice steady, humanity faced an existential threat, one we could not defeat through conventional means. To survive, we initiated the long sleep protocol. We built these vessels as arcs, and as a means to preserve our knowledge and species until the threat had passed, or until a time when we might stand a chance. He omitted the nature of the threat, the scale of the conflict, the full capabilities of the supercarriers, and the specific trigger for their awakening. It was the truth, but only a sliver of it. The delegation pressed for details, their questions ranging from the nature of the threat to the specifics of the hibernation technology. Jacob answered what he could, deflected what he couldn't, maintaining a calm, open demeanor that was subtly undercut by the sheer, silent power of the ship around them. While the delegation observed, deep within the Olympus Mons' core, Olympus continued the relentless decryption. The fragmented data streams began to coalesce, forming more coherent narratives, visual logs, and simulations. Jacob, monitoring the progress, felt a growing dread as the pieces clicked into place. Holographic reconstructions flickered into existence, painting a terrifying picture. Not of conventional warfare, but of reality itself being twisted and broken. Vast swathes of stars simply vanishing, not exploding, but being unraveled. Ships, impossibly large and alien, moving through space as if folding it around them. Beings of pure, chaotic energy ripping through fleets like paper. Entire solar systems consumed by a creeping, fractal darkness that devoured light and matter alike, the void blight. Or perhaps entities that manipulated time and causality, erasing civilizations from existence with chilling precision, the chronomancers. Jacob watched, his breath catching in his throat, as simulations depicted ancient human fleets, technologically advanced beyond anything the Concorde possessed, fighting desperate, losing battles against forces that seemed to defy the very laws of physics he knew. He saw the impossible scale of the enemy, the futility of resistance, the sheer, unadulterated horror of a foe that didn't just destroy, but unmade. He felt the weight of 10,000 years of fear and sacrifice settle upon him. The long sleep wasn't a retreat. It was a desperate, last-ditch gamble by a species facing annihilation. He understood, with a visceral horror that chilled him to the bone, why his ancestors had chosen hibernation over extinction. "Olympus," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "The Supercarriers. Their primary function." "You said they were arcs, but also a means to stand a chance." "Affirmative, Commander," Olympus replied. Analysis of newly decrypted core directives confirms the supercarriers were designed not merely for survival, but as mobile command centers, advanced foundries, and potential weapons or tools specifically engineered to counter, survive, or evade the ancient threat, should it ever return. They represent humanity's final, most complex contingency. Meanwhile, back on the Concord delegation ship, Aurora pored over her notes, correlating the limited information Jacob had provided with fragmented myths and anomalies she had found in the deepest, most restricted Concord archives, tales of vanished systems, impossible stellar phenomena, and periods of galactic history that simply had no record. The humans had spoken of an existential threat. The archives hinted at something that defied explanation, something that left no trace. She felt a cold dread bloom in her chest. The pieces fit together in a way that was far more terrifying than a simple ancient war. The humans hadn't just fled a powerful enemy, they had fled something that erased the very memory of its passage. And the supercarriers, they weren't just arcs, they were built for it. Suddenly, Olympus's voice cut through the comms channel back to the delegation ship, its tone urgent. "Commander Young to Concord delegation. We are detecting faint, unusual energy signatures and spatial distortions at the extreme galactic edge. Patterns match historical activity associated with the ancient threat." Jacob stood on the bridge, the tactical display highlighting a distant, almost imperceptible anomaly. It was faint, a ghost on the sensors, but Olympus's analysis was chillingly conclusive. "The patterns are unmistakable, Commander," Olympus confirmed. "The ancient threat, it is stirring again." Jacob's eyes sharp. Coincidence? Or had humanity's awakening somehow resonated across the vastness, a signal to an ancient predator that its prey was stirring? The dread he had felt witnessing the historical simulations intensified tenfold, becoming a cold, hard certainty. The past was not just history, it was the present. News of the potential return of the ancient threat, inferred from the human disclosure and confirmed by Concord intelligence assets, now frantically scanning the galactic edge, filtered through the galaxy like a plague of fear. The initial panic over humanity's return morphed into something far more profound and terrifying. All attention, fearful and desperate, refocused on the Sol system, on the silent, powerful supercarriers, and the newly awakened humans who held the secrets of a forgotten war. The Galactic Concord's political debate intensified to a fever pitch. Grand Elder Thaxos's calls for containment became demands for preemptive annihilation. "Their return coincides with the threat's resurgence. They are either harbingers, or they drew it here. Their power is too great, too unknown. We must eliminate them before they doom us all." The Krill, nursing their wounded pride and seeing a chance to seize technology under the guise of galactic defense, echoed the sentiment. Moderate voices, including Aurora's increasingly desperate pleas for understanding and alliance, were drowned out by the rising tide of fear and paranoia. The Concorde was fracturing, staring down two potential apocalypses: the ancient threat and the unpredictable power of humanity. Jacob watched the galactic news feeds, the frantic, fearful faces of alien delegates, the calls for his destruction. He held the terrifying truth of the ancient threat within his mind, the full, unvarnished horror his ancestors had faced. He knew what the supercarriers were truly capable of, what they were built to do. The critical decision pressed down on him, heavy as the weight of millennia. Should he fully reveal the terrifying truth to this fractured, fearful galaxy? Risk galactic panic. Risk them turning their combined might against the still vulnerable, newly awakened human fleet and soul, believing they were preventing a greater evil? Or maintain secrecy, keep humanity's true purpose hidden, and face both the ancient threat and a potentially hostile galaxy alone? Maintain secrecy, keep humanity's true purpose hidden, and face both the ancient threat and a potentially hostile galaxy alone? The weight of 10,000 years pressed down on Jacob Young. He looked out from the Olympus Mons's vast bridge viewport at the distant, pale sun of Sol, then back at the star charts showing the galaxy teeming with life, with fear, with potential allies and certain enemies. Olympus waited, silent save for the faint hum of its core. There was no choice. Not really. Not if humanity was to be anything more than a ghost haunting the void forever running. Olympus, Jacob said, his voice steady, cutting through the quiet tension of the bridge. Compile the data, all of it. The logs, the simulations, the threat profiles, everything we have on the chronomancers. Make it undeniable. The AI's synthesized voice responded instantly, devoid of hesitation. Acknowledged, Commander. Accessing deep archives, prioritizing visually impactful data and core threat parameters. Estimated compilation time. Standard minutes. On the main view screen, the star chart dissolved, replaced by streams of complex data and rapidly assembling holographic models. Olympus worked with a speed that defied comprehension, sifting through millennia of recorded history, scientific analysis, and desperate battle simulations. Jacob watched as terrifyingly detailed visualizations of space-time distortion, energy signatures that devoured matter, and the chilling geometric patterns associated with the ancient threat materialized. Stark and horrifying. Prepare a galaxy-wide broadcast, Jacob continued, stepping towards the central command console. Route it through the Concorde's primary communication network. I want every thinking species, every board member, every leader and envoy to see this. No edits, no go-betweens. Understood, Commander. Starting secure channel access via central network pathways. Broadcast parameters set for maximum penetration. Moments later, across thousands of systems, on screens large and small, the scheduled programming of the Galactic Concorde's network was abruptly interrupted. The familiar, placid Concorde emblem flickered, replaced by the image of a single human face, Jacob Young, superimposed over a backdrop of swirling, impossible energy patterns. This is Commander Jacob Young of the United Nations ship Olympus Mons. Jacob's voice, translated into countless languages simultaneously by Olympus, resonated across the network. 10,000 years ago, humanity enacted a strategic hibernation. We did not vanish due to internal conflict or natural disaster. We hid from a threat that dwarfed any conflict in your current history. A threat that is now returning. Then, the data compiled by Olympus flooded the network. Terrifying holographic reconstructions unfolded. Visions of entire star systems being consumed by an encroaching, reality-warping darkness. Fleets of ancient, powerful alien species being unraveled into non-existence by unseen forces. Simulations showing the utter futility of conventional weapons against this entity. Data visualizations overlaid the horrors, detailing energy signatures that defied physics, temporal distortions that erased causality, and the chilling designation humanity had given it. The chronomancers, the architects of cosmic pruning. The sheer scale of the ancient human effort to even understand the threat, let alone survive it, was laid bare. Across the Galactic Concorde, the broadcast was met with a maelstrom of reactions. Panic erupted on populated worlds. Disbelief echoed through scientific academies. The data was too impossible, too terrifying to be real. Accusations flooded communication channels. This was a human fabrication, a desperate lie designed to sow chaos. A distraction from their own sudden, powerful resurgence. They were trying to manipulate the galaxy, perhaps even preparing for an attack of their own, using this ancient threat as a pretext. The Arcturian hardliner faction, already wary of humanity's unpredictable power, seized on the fear. From their austere council chambers, Grand Elder Taxos, his auditory filaments rigid with alarm, addressed the conquered. This presentation changes nothing, he declared, his voice amplified across the network. Whether this threat is real or a human deception is secondary. What is undeniable is that humanity possesses power beyond our reckoning, and they have returned at a moment of galactic instability. Their capabilities, combined with this potential crisis, represent a volatility we cannot afford. Humanity must be contained. Their technology must be neutralized. The Krill hegemony, still smarting from their humiliating defeat in the Sol system, openly roared their support. "The Arcturians are correct!" bellowed Warlord Crag from his flagship's bridge, his image broadcast alongside Taxos. "These humans are dangerous! They defeated our fleet with sorcery. They weave lies about ancient evils. They are a threat to the established order. The hegemony stands with the conquered hardliners. We must strike now, together, and eliminate this unpredictable element before it plunges the galaxy into chaos." Within the conquered council, fear proved a potent weapon. Grand Elder Thaxos, leveraging the widespread panic and the Krill's vocal support, pushed relentlessly. He painted a picture of humanity as a rogue, unstable power, potentially even linked to the ancient threat they described. The debate was short, sharp, and dominated by terror. Moderate voices, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of fear and accusation, faltered. Within hours, a resolution was drafted and voted upon. It passed with a clear majority. Authorization for a joint defense and reduction operation targeting the Sol system, framed as a vital preventative security measure against a threat. Potentially hostile force. Aurora, watching the council proceedings from a remote observation station, felt a cold dread settle over her. She had tried. She had argued, citing her observations of the Olympus Mons' restraint, presenting her own analysis of the terrifying data, arguing that humanity might be the galaxy's only hope against the threat, not its cause. But her words were drowned out by the clamor of fear and political opportunism. She watched helpless as the galaxy chose panic over reason, aggression over caution. She saw the vote tally, the grim faces of the delegates, and knew what was coming. Across the Conquered, the order went out. Fleet commands mobilized. Hardliner warships, Krill battle groups, and contributions from dozens of smaller species, their leaders terrified by the broadcast and manipulated by Thaxos and Crag, formed up. A large group, a mix of diverse teams, met at set points. Their path was clear, their aim was known. The combined Concord aggressor fleet, jam-packed with conventional weaponry, began its advance towards the Sol system with overwhelming numbers. Aboard the Olympus Mons, Olympus's calm voice cut through the bridge's low hum. "Commander, detecting significant fleet signatures. Trajectory confirmed inbound to Sol system. Composition matches Concord hardliner and Krill hegemony vessel types, supported by numerous smaller craft. Fleet size estimated at 3,700 vessels. Assigned unit implementing Protocol 7, Code 9, partial lockdown. Expected arrival, 48 standard hours. 48 hours. Not enough time to leave. Not enough time to negotiate. Only enough time to prepare." "Olympus," Jacob ordered, his gaze fixed on the tactical display showing the vast incoming swarm of hostile contacts. "Initiate full activation sequence. All remaining dormant supercarriers within the Sol system's defensive net. Wake them up." Deep within the Gort cloud, in the asteroid belt, and hidden in the gravitational shadows of the outer planets, ancient, dark shapes stirred. Energy signatures, previously faint echoes, flared to life. One by one, then by the dozen, the colossal forms of humanity's dormant supercarriers began their slow, inexorable ascent towards the inner system. Their numbers swelled the human fleet from a handful to over 100, each a mobile mountain of forgotten power. The awakened supercarriers assumed a highly coordinated defensive formation around the core Sol planet. It wasn't a simple wall, it was a complex, layered structure, a three-dimensional web of interlinked vessels. Interconnected layered shielding flared into existence, not a solid barrier, but a shimmering, multi-hued field that seemed to ripple with contained energy. System-wide sensor arrays, drawing power from the quantum vacuum cores, painted an impossibly detailed picture of the incoming fleet. Localized energy distribution grids pulsed, ready to shunt power where needed across the vast network. Precisely on schedule, the conquered aggressor fleet arrived in the Sol system. They filled the void, a sea of metallic behemoths, their hulls reflecting the distant starlight. Their formation was aggressive, confident in their overwhelming numbers. A primary communication channel opened, raw and arrogant. Human vessels of Sol, a voice boomed, a composite of hardliner and krill commanders, imbued with contempt. By resolution of the Galactic Concord, you are ordered to immediately surrender all vessels and deactivate all advanced technology. Failure to comply will be met with overwhelming force. This is your final warning. Jacob stood on the Olympus Mons' bridge, watching the display of enemy ships. He didn't raise his voice, but his refusal resonated with the quiet authority of a man who carried the weight of history. "This is Commander Jacob Young of the Olympus Mons," he broadcast back, the message echoing through the hostile fleet. "We have the right to exist. We have the right to defend ourselves. You come here seeking to disarm us, blind to the true threat that approaches the galaxy. Turn back. Do not force our hand." There was no response, only the charging of weapons. The battle commenced. The aggressor fleet unleashed its combined firepower. Plasma bolts, kinetic slugs, energy beams, and swarms of missiles surged towards the human formation, a tidal wave of destruction intended to simply overwhelm and shatter the ancient vessels through sheer force. But the human supercarriers were not merely ancient. They were built for a different kind of war. Their defenses activated, capabilities far beyond the subtle nudges shown against the initial krill probe. The layered energy shielding didn't just absorb fire, it warped incoming energy beams, bending them into harmless arcs or scattering their coherence. Localized space-time distortions shimmered around vulnerable points, causing incoming projectiles to briefly cease existing or veer wildly off course. Hyper-adaptive point defense systems, a blur of unseen activity, vaporized or deflected missiles and fighters with impossible precision, leaving glittering trails of destroyed ordnance in their wake. The human hulls, dark and imposing, weathered the storm, their probability fields flickering subtly, shifting their existence through countless states to evade kinetic impact. Under Jacob's command, the human fleet moved with a terrifying, silent grace. It wasn't a chaotic brawl. It was a symphony of ancient, highly effective tactical maneuvers. Formations shifted fluidly, creating coordinated fire zones that focused defensive energy where needed. Strategic positioning exploited the geometry of space, forcing the numerically superior aggressors into disadvantageous angles. Energy efficiency was paramount. Power cores pulsed steadily, sustaining defenses and preparing for counteroffensives without the frantic fluctuations of conventional combat. Then, the human fleet began its surgical counteroffensives. They didn't unleash planet-shattering volleys. Instead, precision energy strikes lanced out, targeting aggressor command ships not to destroy them, but to disable their primary systems, crippling their coordination. Unexpected weapons flickered to life. Non-kinetic disruptors that overloaded enemy shields without hull damage, targeted EMP pulses that shut down entire sections of enemy fleets, leaving them adrift and vulnerable. The goal wasn't annihilation, it was decapitation and incapacitation. Aurora, watching the battle unfold from a safe distance aboard an Arcturian observer vessel, could only stare in stunned silence. The aggressor fleet, 3,000 strong, was being systematically dismantled by a human fleet less than a tenth its size. Their overwhelming firepower was being rendered impotent by defenses that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. Their formations were collapsing under surgical strikes that left ships intact but helpless. It wasn't a battle, it was an execution of tactics, a demonstration of absolute controlled superiority. The numerically superior aggressor fleet was suffering catastrophic, one-sided losses despite their desperate efforts. Their command structure crippled, their formations shattered, and facing capabilities they couldn't comprehend, the conquered aggressor fleet broke. The retreat was chaotic, demoralized. Ships turned tail and fled the Sol system, leaving behind a graveyard of disabled vessels and shattered confidence. In the immediate aftermath, the human fleet reported minimal damage. Sol was successfully defended. But the energy output signatures recorded by the fleeing aggressors, the sheer strategic implications of their capabilities, defenses that nullified conventional weapons, precision strikes that crippled fleets without mass destruction, Tactical coordination that defied logic sent a new wave of fear and awe across the galaxy. Humanity hadn't just returned. They had demonstrated they were operating on an entirely different level. Simultaneously, at the galactic edge, undeniable and amplified signs of the ancient threat's approach manifested. A visible tear in the fabric of spacetime expanded rapidly near a previously stable sector, swallowing nebulae and distorting light. A sudden, unexplainable silence fell over a cluster of inhabited systems, their communication signals simply ceasing, replaced by an unnerving void. The horror was real. It was imminent. Aboard the Olympus Mons, the battle reports flowed in, confirming the aggressor fleet's route. Olympus's voice, calm as ever, spoke. Commander, deep archive decryption complete. Final core directives of the Inheritance Protocol unlocked. The view screen shifted, displaying not battle maps but ancient human symbols, star charts from a forgotten era, and complex, interwoven diagrams of galactic net. Olympus continued, its voice solemn. Humanity was preserved not merely to survive, but to perform a specific, monumental task. The Inheritance Protocol dictates our ultimate purpose. Error. Content tag, content part 5 not found in response. Raw text length, 9,348 characters,